Hey, what's up, guys? You guys are gigantic. I love binoculars. You can use them to see things that are up close, that are actually far away. For example, I might see a tiny little speck on the mountainside, but in the distance, if I look with these, that speck might actually be a grizzly bear. Pretty cool, right? And there are lots of things that we can use to help us see something better. Binoculars or microscopes or even telescopes that help us look at the night sky. All of these things help us focus. They help us take a closer look. And this month, we're putting our focus on something really important. But it's actually something that you can't see. This month, we're talking about faith. Faith is trusting in what you can't see because of what you can see.
So how can you do that? How can you trust in something you can't see? Well, it's simpler than you might think. And we can start taking a closer look. I tell you what, to kick things off and to help us set our sights on our goal, we've got a fun game that we like to call Microscope, Telescope, Eyes.
Oh, okay.
Pretty original, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so here's how it's gonna work. We've got a blurry image. I'm gonna show these guys on the screen, and then they will have a set. Now, at home, you can use a piece of paper and write M, T, or E. M for microscope, T for telescope, or E for eyes. Okay? And on the image that they're going to see, that you're going to see at home as well, you're going to determine what would you use to make that come in clear focus. Okay? Any questions?
No.
Okay.
I think so.
Here we go. This is a blurry blob of fuzziness, isn't it? So y'all said a microscope. Hopefully that's what you guys wrote at home too. But let's see, what is number one? The answer is an amoeba. So you use a microscope. Good job. Okay. Here we go. Number two. Way to focus, you guys. And number two is, I said a telescope. Let's make sure that it's correct. The answer is a planet. It comes into focus with a telescope. That's right. Okay, here's the next one. Number three. You think?
It looks like, I don't know, it looks like blood.
It does.
Let's see. It is blood platelets. So yes, a microscope would be used. Next one, ready? This is number four.
I think it's cupcake.
I said
Answer is pancakes. You would use your eyes. Now the last one might be just a little tricky. Okay. Here we go. Number five.
I'm gonna say. I'm gonna say the telescope.
Why did you pick a telescope?
I don't know. I think it might be the sun.
Kind of looks like a moon.
Or
I think it's a
maybe-
plate with a knife and a fork.
But it is a planet.
I did not cheat!
Okay, looks like Miss Brittany won out. She got 5 for 5.
Now it's time for us to get on our feet and get ready to sing and worship God. This is our time to lift our voices and focus our hearts on God. I want every beat of my heart to praise Him. So come on and let's sing. Our memory verse reminds us of our focus. Hebrews 11:1 tells us, faith is being sure of what we hope for. It is being sure of what we do not see. This next song is a great reminder to keep going and have faith. So sing along once you catch on.
What you can't see, because of what you can't see. Have faith, believe in what you can't see, because of what you can't see. Have faith. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Have faith. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Have faith. It's being sure of what we hope for. Certain in the unknown. Cause believing is a choice we make, yeah. So have faith, have faith. And wherever you go, you see the proof of what you know that you know. You know it's true. A big, beautiful world, a beautiful world that's full of hope. Believe in what you can't see, because of what you can't see. Have faith, believe in what you can't see, because of what you can't see. Have faith. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Have faith. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Have faith. It's being sure of what we hope for. It's being certain in the unknown. Cause believing is a choice we make, yeah. So have faith, have faith. And wherever you go, you see the proof of what you know that you know. You know it's true. A big, beautiful world, a beautiful world that's full of hope. Believe in what you can't see, because of what you can't see. Have faith, believe in what you can't see, because of what you can't see. Have faith. What you can't see, because of what you can't see. Have faith, believe in what you can't see, because of what you can't see. Have faith. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Have faith. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Have faith, have faith.
Faith is so important. Faith changes the way we live our lives, the way we think about ourselves, the way we think about God, and even the way we treat others. Our faith is sort of like binoculars that we can look through to see everything in our life. It helps us to make sense of the things and know what to do when things get hard. Our faith reminds us that we can trust God no matter what.
So we're continuing God's big story, which we find in the Bible. And the Bible is divided into two main parts, the Old Testament and the New Testament. And one of the books in the New Testament is actually the book of Hebrews, which is a letter. And the writer of Hebrews wanted to encourage the followers of Jesus to stay strong, even when it seemed like everyone was against them. And once again, let's look at the words from chapter 11 from the book of Hebrews in the New Testament. Faith is being sure of what we hope for. It is being sure of what we do not see.
You see, faith is all about believing in the things that you can't see because of what you can't see. We can't see God, but we can read about Him and read about all the people who have come before us who followed God. And you know, these men and women, they face tough times just like you and I do. People who are hurting and scared and sometimes overwhelmed, here, you know, that was a lot like they were too. But they chose to follow God. They chose to trust His promise that He would send a rescuer. And that rescuer was Jesus. Now, the writer of the book of Hebrews reminds us about some of those people whom we've already met so far as we've gone through God's big story. So let's watch this and remember.
The Bible. It's 66 books of history, stories, letters, and poetry that fit together to form God's one big story. The epic adventure of how He created us and loves us so much that He made a way to rescue us. As we travel through the Bible, from Genesis to Revelation, we discover people who met God and found their lives changed forever. Now for an amazing story, inspired by the book of Hebrews, chapters 11 and 12.
Gotta have a little faith, 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 faith. Keep the faith. Take a leap of faith. You know, a lot of people toss around the word faith lately. We say you can break the faith, or just take it all on blind faith. But true faith isn't blind at all. It's much more than just an inspirational word. True faith has to do with believing in all the things you can't see, because you start with what you can see. Now, we can't see God with our physical eyes, but we can see the stories of people who came before us. They lived in a broken world like we do, but they chose to follow God. They chose to trust His promise that one day He would send a rescuer that would make everything right again. The writer of Hebrews in the New Testament tells us about some of these men and women in God's story. People like Noah, people like Abraham. When God called Abraham, he was already getting old. He and his wife Sarah didn't have kids.
Leave your country and your people. Leave your father's family. Go to the land I will show you. All nations on earth will be blessed because of you.
God was planning on sending His rescuer as one of Abraham's great, etc. grandchildren. But still, even though Abraham had God's promise, he still couldn't see the one God was sending. Still, Abraham went on a wild adventure, following God's call, and even his descendants, Isaac, Jacob, and Joseph, all chose faith in God. Moses, too, was called by God from the fiery heart of a burning bush. Even though he was raised by Pharaoh's daughter, he chose to stand with his own people and face Pharaoh's anger to win freedom. We read about it like this in the book of Hebrews.
Moses suffered shame because of Christ. He thought it of great value.
See, when you check out Hebrews, you discover this huge list of people who followed God by faith, so many that the writer just stops trying to list all of them. Oh, but we can't forget Israel's most important king, David.
Get up and anoint him. This is the one.
Even though God had promised David would be king, though, David spent years on the run from King Saul, fearing for his life. Still, he chose to trust God.
The Lord is my shepherd. He gives me everything I need.
Now, none of these people in the Old Testament could see with their eyes how God was going to save His people, but they could see how He was working in their lives, how their needs were being met. So they chose to believe in His greater plan. They chose faith.
Faith is being sure of what we hope for. It is being sure of what we do not see. That is what the people of long ago were praised for.
Now, here's where the story turns. In Hebrews, we discover that none of those people in the Old Testament received what God had promised here on earth.
That's because God had planned something better for us, so they would only be made perfect together with us.
God's plan includes all of us from the very beginning of creation. So at just the right moment, at the perfect point in time, God sent His rescuer, the hero, His very own Son, Jesus. Jesus showed us how to live. He showed us what God was like, and He told us the most important thing.
If you love one another, everyone will know you are my disciples.
Love God, love others. It's the heart of the whole story. But then, Jesus was killed, and His friends thought the story was finished. Period. Dot. The end. Until God raised Him back to life. Jesus has defeated death, and those who follow Him can live with Him forever. But how do you follow someone you can't see? Well, that brings us back to faith.
Let us keep looking to Jesus. He is the one who started this journey of faith, and He is the one who completes this journey of faith. He paid no attention to the shame of the cross. He suffered there because of the joy He was looking forward to. So think about Him. Then you won't lose hope.
The early believers, Peter and John and other followers of Jesus, had seen Him teach and heal. They saw Him after God raised Him to life. But after Jesus returned to heaven, the believers continued to live by faith.
We have to speak about the things we've seen and heard.
Because of what the new Christians in the early church had seen, they could believe in what they could not yet see, the end of the story, where God makes everything right. They kept the faith, and because they did, we can choose faith too.
These early Christians believed in what they couldn't see. They knew they were part of God's big story, even though they couldn't see the ending where God would make everything right. And we can choose to believe just like they did. We can believe like the people in the Old Testament did. We can follow Jesus even though we can't see Him. We can have faith. Remember, you can know Jesus even though you've never seen Him. And it's true, you may not be able to see Jesus with your eyes, but you can see how He loves and helps people. You can see how people can have faith in hard times because they've put their trust in Him. You can know Jesus even though you've never seen Him. So let's pray. Dear God, thank You for giving us so many examples of people all throughout history who chose to put their faith in You. They couldn't always see how it would all work out, but they chose to trust You. Thank You for reminding us today that we can trust in You and in Your promises, even though we don't see how they're going to work out. Help us to remember when it's hard, when we feel frustrated or afraid, that we can trust You and put our faith in You. We love You and we pray these things in Jesus' name. Amen.
God's story is so big, and it's amazing to look back at all the people who believed in God and put their faith in Him. People like Abraham and Moses and David. They trusted in what they couldn't see. And they believed that God is faithful. And they believed that God would keep His promises. And they believed that it's always worth it to follow His plan. Remember what our verse says. Faith is being sure of what we hope for. It's being sure of what we do not see. We can have faith in Jesus even though we can't see Him. And not only can we read about who Jesus is and what He's done, but we can also look to others who follow Jesus too.
When you know how He has worked in other people's lives, you can see how He can work in your life too. The truth is, there will be times in our lives when we feel like we can't see. There will be things we don't understand, and there will be times when we aren't sure how it's all going to work out. But through all of it, we can trust Jesus and choose to have faith. You can know Jesus even though you've never seen Him.
You might wonder where to start with all this. Where do I start to put faith in Jesus? Well, you can talk to someone who does follow and trust Jesus, like maybe your parents or someone in your kids' town that's a large group leader, small group leader, or maybe another adult that you trust somewhere in the church. You can ask them how they put their faith in Jesus. You can also read the stories of the men and women in the Bible who chose to trust in Jesus. When you see how and you hear how others have put their faith in Jesus, it can help you to do the same. We're looking forward to the rest of the summer as we put a spotlight on faith and how we can know and trust Jesus as our Savior and Lord. It's going to be a great one. So guys, stay focused. We'll see ya.